Good Tuesday morning, everybody. I am driving down the road right now in a car that is just full of memories for me. I'll show you a little bit of it, okay? This is Caleb's car, but the reason it's Caleb's car is because first it was my dad's car, and it's an old Lincoln. And after my father passed away, my sister, who was the executor of his estate, trying to figure out what to do with it, and Caleb needed a runaround car. And when Caleb was a kid, he always loved my dad's cars. My dad liked big cars like this, and in Chicago you could pick them up for next to nothing. They were all over the place. And so Caleb said, yeah, I'll take it. So he and some of his buddies from church went up to Indiana and got it and came back, and he's been cruising around in it ever since around town. Wouldn't want to take it out on the road. It's got some serious age on it, but I'll tell you what, compared to riding around in that old truck I ride around in most of the time, I feel like I'm cruising around on my sofa. It's as smooth as it can be still after all these years. But this isn't a post about Lincolns. It's actually a post about how things circle back into our lives. Steph and I have thought about that a lot over the last few years. It's something God's made a point of pointing out to us, that things circle back through your life. And I dropped my truck off at Caleb's this morning because he's going to use it to pick some things up for church. And as I was getting in this car, I opened the back door to put my shoulder bag in. And I mean, you talk about deja vu. I cannot tell you the number of times I watched my dad open the back door of his Lincoln or his Buick or his big old Chrysler, whatever the big car he was driving at the time, and put his briefcase in the back and get all set up for the day. You pastor in Chicago, you spend a lot of time in your car and sitting in traffic. So he'd have his thermos full of coffee, he'd have a bunch of grapes, he'd have some usually a banana or two, maybe a Danish. He was set up. He was ready to roll. But as I was doing that, and I climbed in and started driving away, the Lord just reminded me of how, again, so many things in our lives cycle back through. And just an encouragement to you this morning. One of the things that Steph and I have learned is don't burn bridges. Don't burn bridges. You never know who's coming back around into your life. You won't do it all perfectly. God knows I haven't. But try to treat people as well as you know how, because you never know when they're going to be a part of your life again in the future. And also, we found out that very often there are those moments in our lives that you kind of get that deja vu sense, like, wow, my parents did almost exactly the same thing. Or in fact, Josh and I were having that conversation this morning. We're staying with Josh and Julie right now while we're out of our house. And it was one of those things where he was talking about a season of his life from a couple of years ago. And I just realized in a fresh way how much it mirrored my life at the same age in so many ways, so many details. And there are going to be things you learn along the way, and there are going to be people who need to learn what you learned. There are going to be opportunities to share the knowledge you've gained. And as I was climbing in this vehicle, I realized that there are some things that I need to make sure I pass along to Caleb as a young minister. And I try to be really conscientious about doing that, but I realize there's some more things, just memories flooded back. And I guess maybe, because this is obviously no well thought out thing here, but I guess maybe as much as anything it's this: value the lessons you learned at every season, because there's probably going to come some moment in your life, many moments actually, where you have a chance to pour that knowledge into somebody else coming along behind you. And Be careful with the people in your life, because there's always the chance they're going to be back in it again. I remember years ago when I was in Bible college, in the dorm I was in, on my hall, there was a kid back then, literally just a kid. His name was Nagi Hana, and Nagi was an Egyptian. He was there as a high school student, a boarding student, and all the rest of us were a few years older than him, and we picked on him and teased him, and he made it easy. He was he gave as good as he got. But when I left college and moved away, I never really expected that Nagi would be in my life again in any significant way. And a lot of years go by, and lo and behold, God calls us back down to that part of Florida. Nagi had never left, and lo and behold, Nagi winds up being my landlord, and a very good landlord he was too, very kind. And I just remembered then realizing, wow, that is an amazing thing. I wouldn't have guessed this in 100 years. And the friendship was renewed and has continued on, and that's just one of so many cases like that. And anyway, for whatever all that is worth to you, just my musings as I'm driving along in my dad's old car this morning, probably feeling a little more nostalgic than usual in light of just what's been going on in our life right now. But anyway, hope that encourages you to value the people and the experiences you're going through, whatever they are. They're meaningful and going to be more meaningful in years to come than you could possibly guess this morning. Love you all.